Good day, everyone, especially to you, ma'am. Our topic today is all about economic theory of social change. Owing largely to the influence of Marx and Marxism, the economic theory of change is also known as the Marxian theory of change. Of course, economic interpretation of social change need not be always Marxist, but none of the other versions, such as Veblen, who also stress on material and economic factor of the doctrine, are quite as important as Marxism. The Marxism theory rests in this fundamental assumption that change in the economic infrastructures of society are the prime movers of social change. For Marx, society consists of two structures. First, we have infrastructures and the second is superstructures. The first is in the infrastructures consists of the force of production and relations of production. Second is the superstructures consist of those features of the social system such as legal, ideological, political, and religious institutions which serve to maintain the infrastructures and which are molded by it. To more clear, according to Marx, productive forces constitute means of production, natural resources, land, labor, raw material, machines, tools, and other instruments of productions. Production techniques, we have mental, moral, habits of human beings, both and their level of development determines the social relations of production. Next is the constitute the economic structures of society. The totality of production relations, those the socio-economic structures of society, is basically determined by the state of productive forces. For Marx, and contradiction between the constantly changing and developing productive forces and the stable production relations is the emerge of all social development or social change. Dahil sa impluwensya ng Marx at Marxismo, ang teorya ng pagbabago sa ekonomiya ay kilala rin bilang teorya ng pagbabago ng Marxian. Ang superstructures ay binubuo ng katangian ng sistemang panlipunan tulad ng legal, ideological, pampolitika at relihiyosong mga institusyon na nagsisilbing pagpanatili ng infrastruktura at hinuhubog nito. Ayon kay Marx, ang mga produktibong puwersa ay bumubuo ng paraan. Mga likas na yaman, lupa, paggawa ng ilaw, materyales, makina, kasangkapan at iba pang instrumento ng produksyon.
This is the basic postulates of economic theory and social change. Change is the order of nature and society. It is inherent in the matter through the contradiction of forces. Matter is objective reality, existing outside and independent of the mind. The activity of the mind does not arise independent of the material. Everything, mental or spiritual, is the product of the material process. The world, by its nature, is material. As we can see, change is the only constant in our life. It affects our daily life, it affects our future, it affects our decision making, it affects our economic and technology. It also affects our future because change is a natural process. Everything which exists comes into being on the basis of material course, arises and develops in accordance with the laws of motion of matter. Things come into being, exist, and cease to exist, not each independent of all other things, but each in its relationship with others. The Martian theory of social change is also consists a large part of analysis of dynamics of capitalism, the laws of motion of capitalist society. The transition from one stage to another took place through the revolutionary transformation. Things cannot be understood each separately and by itself, but only in their relation and interactions. The world does not consist of permanent stable things with definite properties, but of an ending process of nature, in which things go through a change of coming into being and passing away. This statement says that change is inevitable, it is continuous, and change is a natural process of a phenomena. For Marx, production system is the lever of all social changes. And this system is dynamic. Need system determines production and the technological order, the mode of production. It is man's material necessities that are at the root of his productive effort, which in turn, it is basics of all other forms of his life. Marx believed that change occurs through the contradiction of forces, and this is present throughout the history and some of the other form. Marxism deals with the theory and practice of socialism. It propagates the establishment of a classes society. The means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned by the community as a whole against private owners. In the preface of his monumental work, Capital, a critic of political economy, Marx's whole philosophy of social change is summarized. At a certain stage of their development, the material forces of production in society come into conflict with the existing relations of production or with the property relations within which they had been at work before. From forms of development of the forces of production, these relations turn into their fetters. Then comes the period of social revolution. With the change of the economic foundation, the entire man's superstructure is more or less rapidly transformed. Thus, the main thrust of the preface is the emphasis of changes is in the economic base, and this in turn produce ideologies which include people to fight out social struggles. As it stands, this materialist conception of the history certainly encourages us to regard evolution of the economic base as the key to social change.
Marx viewed the course of history social change in terms of the philosophy of dialectics, an idea borrowed from Hegel, but Marx called it materialistic. According to Hegel, evolution proceeds according to a system of three stages: thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. In particular, Marx viewed the class struggle and the transition from one social system to another as a dialectical process in which the ruling class viewed as thesis evoke its negation, antithesis in the challenger class, and thus to a synthesis through revolutionary transformation resulting in a higher organization of elements from the old order. Every class struggle is a political struggle. This means that if the proletarian and the capitalists are waging an economic struggle against each other today, they will be compelled to wage a political struggle tomorrow and thus protect their respective class interests in a struggle that bears two forms. Marx believed that the class struggle was the driving force of social change. For him, it was the motor of history. He states that the history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. Society evolves from one stage to another by means of struggle between two classes, one representing the obsolescent system of production and the other nascent order. The emerging class is ultimately victorious in this struggle and establishes a new order of production. Within this order, in turn, are contained the seeds of its own destruction, the dialectical process once more. Marx believed that the basic contradiction contained in a capitalist economic system would lead to class consciousness. Class consciousness involves a full awareness by members of the working class of the reality of exploitation, a recognition of common interests, the common identification of an opposing group with their interests are in conflict. This realization will unite them for proletarian revolution. The concept of class consciousness is based on his theory of social classes and the distinction he makes between existing social classes and politically active ones. It is not sufficient for a large number of individuals merely to be living under similar social conditions for them to constitute a class.
Critique. Mark is often charged for his deterministic attitude toward society and its change. There is some controversy as to whether Marx really meant to assert that social and cultural phenomena.
To say the superstructures of society is determined by its infrastructures than the Marxian physiology admits. Moreover, Marx oversimplified the class structures of society and its dynamics of social change in the form of class struggle. Dorothy Thomas in 1925 comment that is not difficult to establish correlation between social change and economic change and thought it is hard to interpret them. Thus, economic determinism does not solve major problem of social cohesion.